How's it going, guys? John here, the Basic Expert, and this week we're continuing our discussion on Classic Traveler. I want to apologize that this video is late, as a lot of you know, and I'm thankful for a lot of the concern and support that I got through all this, because I was really genuinely concerned. My daughter had a pretty bad allergic reaction over the weekend, and had swollen feet. We gave her some sunflower seeds. She'd never had them before, and how would we know if she was allergic to them or not? Broke out in hives all over her body. It was in her face. Her feet were swollen. She was complaining that she couldn't even walk, and she was like doing this horrible waddle. As a dad, it was just painful to watch her cry and complain about this. And I spent a lot of the week soaking in an oatmeal bath with her because she didn't want to sit in it alone. And I fell behind on a lot of my freelance work, which is what I do in a lot of instances to pay my bills here. So I just was unable to get this video out in time, as well as do a stream on Monday, and so because of that, I'm deeply sorry. But, you know, family comes first. Thank you to everyone that sent well wishes to my daughter. She is much better now. All the hives cleared up, and she's a happy-go-lucky kid running around being crazy now, so thank you for that. I also want to talk about this new shirt I got. A buddy of mine started a website where he's selling kind of controversial conversation starting shirts that are kind of funny. They have my dark sense of humor in conjunction with my love of freedom and liberty, so I wanted to give him a shout out. I'm not paid to do so, not a sponsor of the channel or anything like that, but just a friend. I want to help out. He's making cool stuff. So he had this shirt. You are the carbon that they want to reduce, with a little smiley face. Kind of fits, I feel like, my dark sense of humor that I rather enjoy. So link will be in the video description to his little storefront online. It's dsYdo.com. And let's jump into this discussion on Classic Traveler. So we're talking about space combat in this turn, and I'm going to try and explain this as quickly and as painlessly as possible. I think it'd be beneficial to read over the rules, and I'm just sort of skimming and highlighting them here instead of what I've kind of been doing. And people have rightfully criticized me for this as well, is, hey, just kind of explain the rules in a more succinct way than reading them. And I think that's a better way for me to absorb the rules myself. I'm doing this Traveler series because I like Traveler, and I'm trying to really understand the rules myself. I'm not doing this as a way of saying this is how you play necessarily. This is how I would play, not necessarily probably the right way or rules as written, but it's how I interpret the rules, how I run them, and they've been relatively successful for me. And honestly, Classic Traveler is a little obtuse. It's kind of in that area of old school role-playing games where not everything is explained to you. You are expected to have some sort of background information in regards to wargaming or something like that, where there's some sort of like information that they just assume that you have. And ironically enough, I feel like a lot of the OSR is like that as well. When you do well to get into like OSE or some other system that is going to explain all the rules to you, but a lot of the third-party stuff, a lot of the other rules are just sort of, they assume that you're there for the OSR, so you already know what you're doing. You don't need to be having your hand held in order to figure out how to play this game. You know how the rules work, and Classic Traveler feels a lot like that, where they kind of expect you to kind of know what D&D is in some ways. Mark Miller specified that a lot of his creation of 3 books for this was based off of OD&D, which came in three little books, and so he had his 3 little books as well, characters, spaceships, and adventures and planets and all that kind of stuff. So we're on book 2, and we're going to go over the fundamentals of space combat in Classic Traveler. So first of all, there's some things you got to know in regards to Classic Traveler. I think the best way Classic Traveler is going to work for you and for me is in person. As far as space combat is concerned, you can probably make it work in Foundry or some other system, virtual tabletop, but I just found in Foundry and in Roll20 it's not as easy and as intuitive to do this, because the way the rules are written in Classic Traveler is you're using vectors, meaning I have this this ship here, this free trader. It has a 1G maneuver drive acceleration, which means it can move 100 millimeters on the battle map that we have at the table. So this means that like if I want to move this, and every movement has to do it. So this is in a nutshell how it works. I can move 100 millimeters this way, and the ship would move that way. I could move, let's say 25 millimeters this way, and these are not, I'm just eyeballing this here, right? And then from this point, I could move 75 millimeters this way to this point, and it's going to move from there to there, with this being these being the final resting points of the ship. So you can see you can use your maneuver drives to turn. If you're going to move straight in one direction, you can use all of that. If you are going to move at this certain angle here, this 25 and the 75 millimeter are going to have to add up. Now, Roll20 and a lot of these other virtual tabletops have measuring tools, which is fantastic, and they will generally work. But you need to have a way of, you kind of want to have all of these vectors laid out on the map, because if this guy shoots missiles, the missiles are going to have the same vector as the ship. So let's say that I choose this path here, which is 25 millimeters by 75 millimeters this way, and he wants to shoot missiles at this guy here. The missiles are going to have the same vector as this. I mean, and you can rule that there's tech on it that it's going to, the missile is going to curve and like try and target this, but you want to be able to keep track of the vectors of everything that's going on the battle map. Missiles, where if there's a sandcaster being used, which will block laser fire, you want to be able to know where all that is on your battle map. So you're going to want to probably do this in person. It's just the way it's going to be. Or use something like this. I wish there was an easier way to do it. Again, Foundry and Roll20 have measuring tools, but the problem is that the measuring tools don't stay there. So you need to have, they don't stay here like this, like what I just drew on the screen. This what I'm doing here on the screen is like the closest thing I could get in demonstrating this to you in regards to how I would run it at the table. At the table, I would have a ruler in millimeters, and we'd be using, you know, a tape measure or something like that as well to plot out these things. That's on a dry erase board or something like that, or on a piece of glass on the table or plexiglass on the table, and we'd be marking like where the missiles are, where our ships are, all this stuff. So that's what I would do, and that would be the easiest way to do it. Obviously, with the way things are these days, you can only play online with people. You're gonna have to figure out a way to do it. I would say the closest you can get to simulating this way of doing it, where you're drawing and you're able to see all the vectors on there, is going to be the best. However you get there, I'm not going to make this video about that, but however you get there to get to this, what it looks like here on my screen, or what it would look like at a physical table, is going to be the best experience as far as ship versus ship combat is going to be for you. So a couple of things we got to understand though before we get too far into this, because as you can see we're using millimeters. You're going to want a big surface area, and this surface area is going to be 100 million scale. So 1 millimeter equals 100 kilometers. 3 meters will equal 1 light second, and then you can have planetary templates on there. Planetary templates are going to affect the gravity of those planetary templates. Are going to have G's that will affect your vectors. You're going to have to do some math of addition and subtraction based on how you're moving. If you're moving into the gravity, it's going to make you go faster, obviously, right? Like if you the Beowulf has a movement or a 1G, which is again 100 millimeters. So if it's moving into like a 0.75, it can go an extra 100.75, right? Or if it has 75 millimeter gravity, the G, which would specify on the planetary template, then that gravity is going to affect it. And you would draw that out with, like, you know, there's a planet here, and then it has like these gravity bands, and if anything moves into those gravity bands, then you're going to have it's going to affect the acceleration of your ship during combat, and missiles as well, all that sort of stuff, and sandcasters, everything like that. So it's hard sci-fi. It's 1970s, like analog sci-fi, but it's like hard sci-fi still. You know, it's not like Star Wars where stuff's flying through space like it's flying through air. You know, the spaceships don't handle like airplanes handle in our atmosphere. They handle in this game, they handle like spaceships handle in zero gravity space in a lot of respects. That's what's trying to be simulated here. Hard sci-fi. So yeah, 100 millimeters equals 1g, which is why we have this here. And 1g will produce a velocity change of 10,000 kilometers or 100 millimeters in scale per turn. You're gonna really, you just want to worry about the millimeters. That the other stuff of what it translates to in kilometers and, you know, light seconds is useful in the grand scheme of probably the storytelling and the hard sci-fi, but the bare mechanics of how combat is going to work is in millimeters. So there are different phases of play, and first we should specify that what is each group called. There is intruder and there is native in Classic Traveler. It's not attacker and defender, because who is attacking and who is defending within Classic Traveler space combat obviously flips back and forth. So it's easier to say who is the intruder, who is the native. So in order of play, it is given first turn to the intruder player, and then to the native player, and then you have the game turn phase. Within each ship's turn, there are multiple things you can do. On page 31, it outlines this. The intruder movement phase. So you're going to, again, plot out your movement like I did here. We'd plot it out. We'd grab our token if we're using tokens like this, and we'd say, like, this is where we want to move. So this is here now. And then you go to intruder laser fire. If we have the targeting program set up on our ship, if that's in our computer, we're able to shoot at this scout ship here, over here, and cause damage to it. If we don't have our targeting program in, we're going to have to put it in the last phase of our turn, where we could take a program out of our computer and put the targeting one in so that we're able to shoot at enemies. But at this point, let's say we could shoot lasers. We have the attacker DMs and defender DMs that are going to modify how the roll is done, and various computer programs of various quality are going to affect your roll and the person you're shooting at. So the intruder here, let's say, is the free trader, and the scout ship is the native. The scout ship, depending on what it has, so if it has, for instance, auto evade in its computer, and let's say maneuver evade 4 or something like that, I don't know, that's the pilot skill, or minus the pilot skill. So the pilot is, let's say, pilot 1 on the scout ship. So auto evade is -2 DM. Auto evade 4 is the pilot skill, so that's going to be -1. And so that's going to be -3 altogether to the roll. Let's say on the free trader ship, they have predict 1 and target, and gunners is using it as well. So predict 1 is +1. The gunner skill is +1. And the targeting program just needs to be on. It doesn't provide any DMs. You just have to have that program running in order to target another ship. So let's say that's it. That's all the modifiers they have. So that's +2. +2, -3, overall modifier is -1 to that. Let's say they roll 2d6. That's a 6. That's a 4. That's 10. -1 is 9. That's over 8. The free trader is able to hit this ship with laser fire. We would then roll for damage. So you would roll on the hit locations on page 30. Let's say this scenario that I've just described is playing out here. Laser fire landed. He rolled a 9. So his modifier was -1. Not too bad. He rolled a 10. So 9. That's over 8. The target is hit. So you would roll 2d6 on a starship. There's starship, non-starship, and small craft. We're going to roll against the starship because the scout ship is a starship, and we'd roll 1, 2. Okay, so that's a 2 total. That's going to hit the power plant of the scout ship. The power plant of the scout ship is power plant A. It's going to be reduced by 1. So that means that this scout ship is like dead in the water now, because I don't think it goes lower than A, unfortunately. So let's look. Yeah, A is the lowest. So combat's over. This scout ship is just dead in the water. Now this ship can get closer. Maybe we can do a boarding action and take these people hostage or something. Let's say the free traders, pirates, or something like that. You can see how combat would play out. But let's continue through all the different phases of combat that could occur during combat. So let's say that the hit missed, and you have these other phases of play. So you have intruder laser fire, which is what we just did. Native laser fire return. So maybe let's say the power plant wasn't hit. Let's say that hit missed. The same thing would happen with this way. If the scout ship has the target and return fire program in play, they're able to fire back. And we'd again look at the dice modifier rolls that we would need to use to hit, add them up, and it would be just the same way the other way, which could, if that hit I just rolled had missed, it could hit and really damage the free trader. Space combat is very deadly, just like how physical combat, melee combat, or gun combat is very deadly in Classic Traveler. There's no hit points on ships. It's just that thing's hit, it's reduced by 1 level. So like if we had a jump drive or a power plant of B on the scout ship, it would go down to A. So you could take like 1 hit and then goes down 1 to A. We can't get hit again, or else we're dead in the water. And that power plant going down is going to affect other things like our maneuver drive, acceleration, all these other sorts of things that could affect tactically how our ship functions, or how that ship functions during combat. You have intruder ordnance launch after native laser return fire, which will be the intruder, so the Beowulf or the free trader would be able to launch missiles if it has a missile rack. Again, you're going to want the targeting fire thing. You're going to use your modifiers to figure out what it is. You're going to use the defender's modifiers to figure out what's going to be the minus side. Roll your 2d6, figure out what it is. And then you have intruder computer reprogramming. The intruder may remove computer programs from his onboard computer, the input other programs in anticipation of their use in later turns. So again, this is very 1970s sci-fi, but I would keep this rule as is because it's resource management. And resource management is really important, I think, in tactically speaking in this game. It's like the 1970s concept of sci-fi tech is just baked into the rules. I wouldn't remove this. I know it's kind of maybe annoying and kind of a head scratcher, like why is this computer only able to hold like 4 programs in it that are targeting evasion or something like that? Why? That seems ridiculous. But I would leave it in there because it's resource management, and I think the 1970s aesthetic is fun, and Classic Traveler does it really good because it's from that era. So just keep it. And then it would go to the native player's turn. So then the native player would do their movement. So the scout ship would do its vectors. It's going to move. It's going to do its native laser fire. So it's going to shoot a laser back at the free trader. The free trader, if it has the return fire program, let's say in its intruder computer reprogramming phase, they like, we need to put in a return fire program. Now take out this program and put in return fire. They can return laser fire back at the scout ship. The scout ship has native ordnance launch on its turn, so if it has missiles that it can launch, it will launch them. And then the native computer reprogramming. So it's going to be able on that ship to take a program out of its computer, put some in, switch things up in anticipation as to maybe future tactical uses of that program during the combat. Then there's the game turn interface. The end of one game turn is marked. All non-player items such as planets, worlds, and satellites move in accordance with the rules. Other miscellaneous activity may also be necessary. The game then proceeds to the movement and combat of the next game turn. So let's say there's asteroids flying through here, like an asteroid belt. Maybe there's let's draw it out here. Let's say there's let me use a different color maybe. Oops. let's say that there's like debris floating here, and it has a vector going this way of also 100 millimeters. So that is going to move over to here. Let's say that's 100. These asteroids are that. So we're going to take it and move it. We would draw where it's going. And we're going to move it here. So now it's there. Let's say. Like next turn, this Bale, the free trader better get out of the way. So you're gonna have stuff moving around, and this is where like could be fun because the game master can maybe like throw in random debris or something like that. That's in the battlefield as well, and you're just gonna keep going back and forth like this till either a ship flees, is destroyed or boarded, or some other sort of combat ending scenario occurs. The ship is destroyed. Who knows? So it's pretty simple. I think you would do well to read your rulebook and look through the programs and how they work. Yeah, you would do well to read your rulebook. I just went over, like, very simply, kind of to get you started, how it would go, how I would do it, what these rules mean to me, and how I interpret them. I hope that's helpful. Hope that's useful to you. I think it's a relatively simple and elegant system. I like that the rules don't, like, ships don't have hit points, that obviously a higher quality ship with like a better power plant or better hyperdrive is just going to decrease in its quality by a letter grade, which is kind of like hit points, I guess. You're taking hits rather than hit points. I don't know, I like that aspect. There's a lot of differences in Classic Traveler that I think set it apart from a lot of other role-playing games, which is why it's such a fascinating and interesting game to me. But yeah, that's a very simplified explanation of my explanation of how Starship Combat is going to play out. So in our situation, though, like I rolled a 9 and hit this thing. Its power plant was an A. It can't go lower than A, the scout ship, so it's just dead in the water. What would probably happen is this ship would come over. If the scout ship was a player ship, we got to get prepared to get boarded. You know, we're going to have to take on some pirates maybe, or whoever this is that's attacking us. So I don't know. It makes for a lot of fun story stuff here that could be very interesting. Other things can happen on your ship, like decompression. You may be forced to abandon ship. It might be useful for players to specify where they are. Like if there's a player in the power plant, and that hit that we just rolled occurred, you might want to make that player roll to see if they survive, because the power plant is hit. It's gone. It's destroyed. Is that player still alive? Are they sucked out into space? Did they get a vac suit on? There's lots of different little story elements, I guess, little intricate little points in here that you could play out, where you're kind of jumping from this starship combat like to the characters on the ship and what's going on. And I like that. To me, that's fun. You're kind of like zooming in and out, very cinematic, in my opinion, of a way to run it, in my opinion, that I would think is the best way to do it. So again, that's how it goes. If you like my content, please like, subscribe. Check out my subscribe star if you're interested in that as well. Get a dungeon map a week, an adventure a month. And if you get a high enough tier, when I release something really cool that would otherwise be like a pretty big release, like a book or something like that, you'll get it as a PDF for free for the higher tier, companion tier supporters. So I'm so thankful to all of you out there that do support me. You guys have been awesome. I love talking about this stuff. I've enjoyed talking about Classic Traveler. And check out my buddy's shirt company thing that he's trying to do. It's pretty cool. He makes fun shirts. I like this one. And until next time, guys, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.